Hello, I'm Marcus V. Calvert, and welcome to Tales Unlimited Anthologizer, Episode 12. This should have been part two of an interesting fantasy story about a dwarven berserker whose daughter gets suckered into a job as a blacksmith for a pack of werewolves. She makes some mystical items for them. They go off to celebrate. They turn. She didn't know they were werewolves. They eat her. And when she dies, he knows about it. And he rides off to seek revenge. And I I started it, I didn't like it, and I just no. Two reasons. One, you know how it's gonna end, right? The dwarf's gonna find them, he's gonna chop them up, the end. And the stuff I gave him in just talking about it, just oof, like the iron horse that turns into armor with a giant massive sword on its back that he can easily lift, and then he basically just cut through these werewolves like they're nothing. Child's play. So there's no element of risk. There's no maybe he wins, maybe he loses. You need to have that, right? Secondly, I've been doing a lot of okay. When I do my short stories, they either go into Unheroic, which is about unlikely heroes saving the day, or the Book of Schemes. Now, since I've started this anthologizer thing, it's been Book of Schemes, Book of Schemes, Book of Schemes. So I want to do some unlikely heroes. So last night, I'm like, okay, put this aside. A story about an unlikely hero as a werewolf saving the day. What's it about? Went to sleep on it, got up. I call this one Roadkill. Oof. This dude's just driving along. And he's got his beamer, he's got his music, he's listening to Take Five, good jazz. He's got a bottle of cherry Coke at his side, driving gloves, heat's on. He's an amateur poet, so he's thinking about actually kicking off a poem just based on this ride. And he just runs past a body in the other lane. Good thing, too, because if it was in this lane, he would have. So he parks, he grabs his coat, which has a gun on one side and a phone on the other, and he gets out of his car. And he's calling a buddy because he's like a half mile away from poker night. And he's looking over her, and he sees that she's dead, but she's got this stinger in her neck right around the carotid, and her body begins to convulse. And so he stomps on her windpipe and he goes, okay, I need some axes and some accelerants now. Lots of accelerants, plural, now. Because he realizes what this thing is. And he takes like a little video clip and he sends it off to his buddy. He's like, oh my God. Is that what I think that is? Yes, yes. And basically, I just made up a name, Fendril demons. This one got stung by a mother. There's a mother out there somewhere. We got to get to it. We got to get to it now. And I won't lay in the particulars of how this story ends, but what makes it work is that I pissed on the idea of the traditional monster. I did this once before with a vampire in Japan. He was feeding on prostitutes, and you know how in Buffy the Vampire Slayer you stake the vampire turns to ash? Well, when this guy bites you, drinks all your blood, you turn to ash. And there's nothing left of you but your stuff. So he just take all your clothes, throw them in a dumpster, maybe rifle through your pockets for anything of value, move on. And that's what he was doing to the prostitutes. He was taking their bankrolls, throwing everything else in dumpsters, and there's just ash in the streets. Well, for the werewolf, it's actually better not to change in a fight. And that's all I'm going to say. If you're a werewolf in this particular story, in this particular universe, don't change. Because sometimes I would say, read the story, and it'll be out probably in a year or two. But I would say if you're a mythical creature with the logical strengths, with the traditional strengths and weaknesses, everyone knows where they are, tweak it. Like, for example, maybe vampires hate daylight because it makes them stupid. Not because it burns them, it makes them stupid or horny or forgetful. They just like, oh no, I hate the daylight. Why? Because I have the memory of a goldfish in daylight, man. I hate it. I don't even go out for my paper because I'll forget where I live if I stay out there too long. Play with that when you're writing short stories about mythical creatures. Maybe dragons don't fear, dragon's bane. Maybe they fear ibuprofen. Ha ha ha. I mean, why not? Okay, I'm Marcus V. Calvert. This is Tales Unlimited Anthologizer, episode 12. I'll call this one Roadkill. Sorry I didn't do the one about the dwarf and the Berserker Rager thing, but I'm telling you, for backstory, I may have to use that bad boy. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look at episode 11. It had something there. I may have to tweak that. All right. Until tomorrow.